Welcome back from the world of music video. Is that what it's called, Sean? A music video. That's what we were seeing there. You're very welcome back, and my thanks to Peter Maxwell, who's gone off about his business of caring for the environment. With me in studio now, Gerry Doherty, a colleague and friend, former.
Hello.
We taught together in the Southern Regional College when it was the Newry Institute.
That's exactly
How long
right.
That's 12 years ago, Gerry.
About that, yes.
Yeah.
I think we were colleagues for about 10 years.
Were we?
I would think so.
Wow.
You came to us after retiring from the BBC.
I retired from BBC 20 years ago.
And you came as a specialist in media.
Wow.
And I was in curriculum development at that stage, and you were my consultant.
Wow, I didn't realise any of this.
Setting up the media courses,
yes,
in which is now the Southern Regional College. And then having given me your advice, you then became a member of staff.
Wow, didn't I do well?
We
I tell
worked
you.
together for, I think it was about 10
We
years.
had great fun.
Rowan.
We had
Yes.
great fun. I came across my old green book the other day, and I was so frightened of this job that I recorded everything in meticulous detail. And you know, I'm going to tell you, it may have made sense to me, the record-keeping process then, but looking back on it now, it makes no sense to me whatsoever.
Well, when records become redundant, they become redundant. And you don't care what they mean, but they had use and meaning.
Very much so,
at the
very
time.
much so, very much so, very much so. It was dreadful news this morning of the Dominicans last night. Did you hear the story of the gunman
No.
and an accomplice who went into the priory, knocked on the door at 8 o'clock, went into the priory, held the 5 priests at gunpoint, demanded money, and then made off with it? Shocking.
No, I wasn't aware of
Yeah,
that.
that's happened last night. Yeah.
Yes, it's the Dominican Priory has been the subject of attack before.
Once or twice,
And
yeah.
I've noticed in the past, this maybe it's to do with people's lack of respect, that parochial houses seem to be the target of. But I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
And Rowan, you've sort of caught me here.
Yeah.
That's a piece of news that I haven't heard yet.
Absolutely. And we send our fond affections and warm good wishes to the Dominicans this morning. I've spoken to them already because they're wonderful people, and tomorrow night, Sunday night over there, is their monthly Tese evening, where there's the ecumenical Tese experience of song and prayer and chanting, and great good comes out of it.
It does, because the music of Tese
Wow.
is very, very reflective and very religious, and in many ways it is a modern version of chant.
Absolutely.
And many of the Tese chants are actually taken from that great old centuries old tradition.
Absolutely. Sorry, go ahead, Gerry.
No, you've sort of surprised me now, and it made me feel
sad.
quite sad now.
I share the sadness.
Because the Dominicans have such a history here of doing good in the community, and of course contributing to the religious experience of so many people in the community, that one thinks that that is not just a crime against the priests and the brothers, it's also a crime against the whole of the community.
Absolutely, Gerry, absolutely. So we wish you well, lads, over there in the Priory, and I'll be calling over to see you later, and we'll talk then. You've been looking through some of the papers, Gerry?
Well, I've been looking through, I brought the Irish Times, and of course it heads with the abortion debate in the Republic of Ireland, and I don't think this is the place to get into the pros and cons of the debate.
No.
But I think one must always feel great sympathy for the lady who has become, in many ways, central to this debate, Savita Halappanavar, who went through a most horrific ordeal in a hospital in Galway. Now, we mustn't confuse different issues, but it has become a major point perhaps in Irish social history, that her case has come up just at the same time as the government were bringing in legislation to cover a certain aspect of what's now known as the X case. But that has taken up most of the news in the south of Ireland.
I see. Enda Kenny has been saying that. Let me see here. Put my glass. I need glasses these days, Gerry.
Well,
which is the big thing.
I think you're getting to that age where
Absolutely.
Specsavers will be of use to you. Or am I allowed to advertise?
Indeed, you are. He's revealed that he's been sent letters written in blood, accusing him of being a murderer. But you see, the pro-life movement is a wonderful movement, and it's populated by excellent people, but there is an element that really destroys the integrity of the message. People who say things like that to Enda Kenny, it's not going to convince anybody. It's not going to change his mind. It's just obscene, and that's the thin end of the wedge that leads in America to surgeons in abortion hospitals being murdered.
Yes, but it's such an emotive issue. I think we all have got our own individual views on that.
Yeah.
Which it's so emotional. It's also such a complex issue that it obviously cannot be teased out in a program like this.
Oh, not
But
at
in
all.
many ways, I think it is part. You can see it as part of the ongoing social history of Ireland. That. And I think, in perhaps most importantly, this abortion debate is going to perhaps define more clearly the divisions between the secular and the spiritual in Ireland. Because, the old idea of Ireland being a Catholic country, Enda Kenny has stood up and said it is not a Catholic country, that we are a secular modern democracy. I think in many ways these cases are beginning to show us, yes, that's exactly what we are. We can be Catholics if we want to. We can subscribe to our whatever religion we want to, whether it's Catholic or not, and we Protestantism, Hinduism, we can be that. But in matters of politics, our religions should be no more than a lobby group. Putting forward very, very sincerely a point of view, because the point must come at some time that you must say, where does the nature of your authority come from? And in autocratic, theocratic states like perhaps Iran, maybe this is perhaps the most obvious at the moment. The power comes from God, and that can lead very much to an enormous abuse of power.
Of course.
Whereas in modern democracies, which we hope are products of more enlightened thinking, we live in secular states, and there should be a defining line between religion and
politics, and that's increasingly happening. We'll take you. Where are you on the narrow water bridge thing? The word's coming that it's almost certain to come to us.
Well, I think locally, it's very, very good news. I know that there are many economic arguments that it may not work, but it's going to open the whole Cooley area and the Mourne area to be seen perhaps more as one. Now, I know that there are movements maybe that perhaps money should be better spent on a southern relief road, which would perhaps be more economically viable. Although I'm not an economist and I'm not a planning developer, but I think the problem might arise as to where does the traffic go when it gets across Carlingford Lough, that the roads are very, very narrow. If the traffic is going to be commercial, and I believe that lorries, I think there was talk about that lorries over a certain weight would not be permitted on the bridge.
That's true.
But I think that has now been abandoned. But where will they go?
There's a thought strikes me, Gerry, that once you get to the other side from behind Davy's pub there's a road up across the mountain that takes you straight up over the mountain. It's 4 miles duration, and that takes you to the motorway. So in a funny kind of way, and the majority of that's in Northern Ireland, the majority of that, as I say, in Northern Ireland, but the possibility is if one wants to think outside the box, that could become, if it developed, the Southern Relief Road, and assuage the worst excesses of the traffic.
Well, I presume the people will have to think of how it will be developed, where the finances will be sourced.
Absolutely.
Because my experience is, if I remember it well, that is a very, very narrow road.
It is, yeah.
And if you're going to have heavy traffic on that road, it will have to be seriously widened, with all of the implications for planning and funding, because it took long enough to get the £2.5 million from the Department of Finance here.
Thank you, Sammy. We'd like to say thank you.
But it seemed, that seemed to me to be very, very silly, because so much money had already been put in place, and to have a little quibble about spending another $1 million or two. Now, $1 million or two is quite big, but obviously there was, one hopes that there will be a lot of finance available from the abandoning of the road through Auckland.
Oh yes, the A5.
The A5.
Yes. Listen, we'll go from the sensible to the silly. What do you think of that? The Irish News is the story of the DUP Alcopop councillor. He may be disciplined. A DUP councillor may face disciplinary action from his party after quenching his thirst during a council meeting with an Alcopop.
Yeah.
He took it from the cabinet, from the fridge in the council, in the members' room. My wonder is why alcohol should be in there at all. It's a place of work for the councillors. They're there doing the job of representing the people, formulating policy, etc., etc. Are they going to take a moment off and sort of say, "Hello, would you like to imbibe an Alcopop?"
Well, I'm not. I read a little bit about that myself. And you know this, I think it's such an insignificant story that I think you quite rightly prefaced it, almost been going from the sublime to the ridiculous. No, we don't like to think of our councillors being half
cut,
inebriated when
I love you,
making
very sophisticated,
serious
decisions. Yes.
But I can't see anything really very much wrong with refreshing yourself.
Refreshing yourself with an Alcopop.
You mentioned maybe on greater level, the G8.
The G8, yeah, it's huge, yeah.
I'm just wondering, it seems to be, and maybe this comes back to environmental issues, there seems to have been an enormous amount of money spent on sprucing up shop fronts around Enniskillen.
We've done it in Newry as well, Monaghan Street, and now Hill Street's going to be done.
Yes, it's going to be absolutely lovely, hiding. It reminded me, in the 18th century, Catherine the Great of Russia, her great favourite was the General Potemkin, and she gave him all sorts of great powers. It was thought, and I think most biographers would say, that he was her lover as well, among many others.
Yes.
But he was one of her favourites.
She was a practiced woman.
But he came from around the south, from the Ukraine area, the Black Sea area. He was sort of lord of that. He was actually made king of Poland, of part of Poland at one.
Wow.
And,
Jerome is standing by. We're going to be talking to Jerome, but, this time about his book.
Anytime the great empress came to visit any of his lands, he built these massively romantic, Gothic type villages all along the route that her carriage travelled, at the cost of billions of rubles, which of course he got from the serfs and whoever was there about. And they became known in history as Potemkin villages.
Wow.
And I'm just wondering if we can call Enniskillen, Lisnaskea, Newry even, but our little examples of Potemkin villages. Or maybe we call them Obama villages.
Obama villages, Obama. Come back to me again soon, will you?
I'll be delighted.
You're a good man.
Listen,
I'm proud to know this man. A great linguistic fellow, a man who inspires with his use of language and encourages, a man greatly thought of in the town of Newry. A musician as well, but that's a story for another day. Sean, you stood by with